You don't see that part of this. That's
It's down on the other side.
So, but the garage is for my tractor and my lawnmower and stuff like
I
that.
see Napa Autos.
So it gets its own garage. It's been in the basement, which shouldn't be there.
Well, it'll be a lot easier in and out.
Yeah, it gives us a lot more storage in the basement.
Sure.
One bedroom.
You know, things we're gonna do with that.
Yeah.
She's just told me to get all my stuff out of the basement, so.
Yeah.
You have to build me something.
The only way you can do it is to build something.
That's right. And then I agreed. Then like we don't have a place for like visitors with dogs. Like both my sister-in-laws have little dogs, so they like to bring them. And we're getting a new one. So
what happened to your old one?
we had to put her down.
Put a lien on it.
So we just lost her.
Yeah, I found that
So we're getting a new lab pup, hopefully sometime in June.
Even hiring
is
a
the
trainer
next
is a waste of money.
breeding cycle. Is
Yeah. Well, I always had labs, and so did Marilyn, so we're right with you on that one.
Yeah, our first one was a lab, and then we tried 2 rescues, and that hasn't worked out well for us. So we're going back to our lab.
Yeah,
That's what they
they're
want the boundary to be
dependable,
the
aren't
thread of
they?
the bird.
We're doing the same breeder that
Floodplain down the
Yeah,
bottom.
yeah.
the Tilneys use.
Oh,
She turned us on to the breeder that she uses.
and where is that she located?
Again, I'm still learning New Hampshire. It's kind of closer to Concord, Manchester area. It's a couple hours
Yeah,
south of here.
yeah.
So
Well, good luck with that. I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll be, I bet you'll be happy. I don't
Oh, I
see a
know.
reason
We
why
just-
not. Yeah.
we watched their website because she has a
A cam on it
she
or
has
something?
well she just had a litter, so we're watching the new litter,
Yeah.
and she's going to breed her again in May, so we'll have something in hopefully July to have the dog. But and their pups are
As far as in Highland.
Are they black or yellow or a combination?
It's funny. She's a yellow,
Yeah.
but this recent she has
No
8.
elevations.
One is yellow, one is brown, the rest are white.
Well, I mean, what was the male, you know, I mean, maybe he was black, but
Yeah.
it's amazing how they can have both, isn't it, in the same litter, to have both.
They always do.
All, I know.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's still
Yeah.
funny to me, yeah.
I think the blacks are more common.
Well, you have a lot to look forward to.
There's been a lot of changes in the house.
Really?
I kind of assumed
Yeah, it's kinda
when
quiet.
I read this. Because
No,
they're
you mean
not
without Bill?
Yeah.
for bigger
Oh.
septic or anything,
So that
which
was
I don't think they could do.
No.
That was the
No,
I bet.
it actually
I bet.
increases the
Changes
size
your
of the
life a
lot,
lot.
which is.
Yeah.
Wonder what purpose.
Have you been having the luck of construction, you know, birds being
Yes,
so?
It's so funny, we lucked out. We had waited almost a year,
All the parties.
and then just by a fluke, we met somebody whose husband just lost a contracting job. He had a project all lined up and they backed out, so he was like, had nothing to do
Oh,
for
yeah,
6 months.
Very leery of people.
So I was like,
Oh,
want a job?
You were.
We'll give you a job for 6 months.
Sure.
So he started in December, and then
Yesterday.
he's moving full steam ahead now with the weather getting better. But,
Great.
yeah, we had the foundation put in for over a year
I
before we
see.
could do anything.
I see.
It's pretty frustrating.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, Jim, just wanted you to know that we're still looking at your office here.
We have your empty office.
Okay.
We know you're not there.
Okay.
So hopefully your wife doesn't come in your office and do something.
Yeah.
Well, if she does, we can wait. He's gonna call her now and tell her to shut it down. Just in case she just decides to walk through there, you know?
Hey, Helen, can you do me a favor? Since the office is part of the meeting at the moment, can you just go upstairs and just shut the computer down? Okay, thanks.
Someone's on an iPhone.
Can't do it from your phone.
Can the person that's using an iPhone identify themselves?
Andrew Beal, Energy Management
Okay, thank you very much.
How are you?
Hello, fine, thank you.
Welcome, Andy.
And everybody signed in on the sign-in sheet.
Have you been to your four shots this year?
If the weather ever gets above 35,
A-L-L-A-N.
it's still on a triple charge, so.
No,
Okay.
I have to tell people that all the time.
Rab, I left the battery hooked up.
Both.
I'm sure we get each other's mail quite a bit. I know I throw it
I
back
figured
at
that
you.
battery would be
We
dead.
get yours from time to time.
Sure.
Yes. It's a different P.O. box. I don't know why it's so confusing, but I guess like Aaron.
They look at the name, you know, Alan, you know.
Yeah.
I'm glad John is wearing the hat, so I can wear the hat.
We should not have party lights anymore.
Today, so I got to dress in.
There you go.
I was on with Russ Miller.
Dick hasn't signed in.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
That had to be a long time
It
ago.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, they called me up, you know, years ago now and said, you know, they gotta get off the party line. I said, well, it's gonna cost you.
No.
Yeah.
no.
And I got a great deal for my landline. I said, oh yeah, we'll take it away from
And
you.
I'm on 4 for
Funny, that's really the old days, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. I remember we had a party line when I grew up.
Yeah.
And
It has to read it, because it's stretching.
Yeah.
that was kind of funny.
You know, they.
Sarah's here, by the way. I saw Sarah.
Oh, she did.
Well, wait,
She
we'll
probably,
Oh, she's here. She was coming in.
she probably would like this chair though.
She was coming in and I was coming in.
It's easier for her.
Yeah.
We always wait an extra 5 for full professors.
Is that the RC Burning Hall?
I see him at running events. My daughter did cross country this
Oh, did she?
fall, and she's signing up for track this spring. She's a 7th grader. so-
Okay, nice.
Yep. Exciting.
Next generation.
Yep.
This is it. And they just cannot lean.
He said her up too.
How are you?
Not too bad. Hey, Chris.
How are you?
Good. Chris, are you know what's happening with the ministry? Are you out of it?
No, I'm home free.
Okay, well, no,
Yeah, ask me.
I'm just curious,
Yeah, no
because I
one.
thought like you used losing your district, you know?
Well, I did, but they recreated it in a different way, and it's okay.
You're still there, but you're representing different areas?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Depends on what happens in November.
I know.
yeah.
Well, yes, yes.
Yeah, but he's still representing
Chairs
us,
all
right?
warmed up.
Right at the moment.
You need a
Still making those run south.
Yep. 2 days this week, 2 days
I know, I
next
saw you filling up. I'm like going, holy cow.
week.
Burning
Yeah,
some gas. It's like tax dollars right there.
it takes me a full tank to get down to bed.
I'm sure.
Really?
It's gravity works.
Well, it doesn't hold that much gas anyway, so.
Price of gas, that's not yes.
We just went down 9 cents at the mobile station, so I'm excited.
Oh, really?
about that. Find
Yes,
it.
I was
What is
looking
it
in
down
the
there, John?
mailbox. You have 2
423.
things, trustee of the trust funds.
It was
things.
432.
So you- Is it open?
It's not open, but have
Where?
a key if you like.
Well, I have a key
Mobile
outside.
station,
Yeah, I have a key in my pocket.
I'll
next
say
to
it.
that bar that
That's
was
easier.
just closed down.
Oh, yeah.
Across from the Christmas store.
And we wonder about that because we pay for the same gas they do, so I know
Yeah.
how the same.
How does that, how does that?
Yeah.
It's
forget which one of
mobile
the
products,
ones it is,
so I don't know how they're
One of
doing
those is
that.
good.
I would think Blood Shepherd
You know-
would have plenty of
Well,
pork.
the thing, you know, it's like anything, you know, your price doesn't change till you get your next shipment. So, you know, we just got a shipment so we can lower the price, but, you know, it's going down right now.
Yeah, well,
Hopefully.
that's good.
But it takes, you know, we're not selling a lot right now, so that's the other thing.
People have cut back, haven't they?
Well, it just is off season
Mud
too.
season.
Yeah.
No,
Well, that's true, it's sort of enough.
But in
it's
August,
not quite tourist season.
in August, we went through 80,000 gallons of gasoline in one
That's
month.
interesting.
In one month.
Is that a lot?
I think so.
It sounds like a lot.
Maybe you burn a lot of gas.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a lot of fuel.
Lot of driving.
Yeah, so,
Lot of
I mean,
miles.
yeah.
One looked like
That's
a
in
check,
August,
so-
of
Yeah.
course.
No,
We're
unfortunately.
nowhere near that now.
No.
Nowhere near that.
I was hoping for you.
It's the checking
Which is nice.
Oh,
Well, for
Never much
us,
money got.
I know. Although I just got home, so I can't complain.
Where'd you go?
We were in Florida, so, as I say, I'm not.
Where'd you guys go?
Sanibel?
Where?
Sanibel, it's on the west coast. It's an island, actually.
So, let's get our evening started. We're starting late, so we'll make it up by going quickly and finishing early. All right, hear you, all the work, okay. Scott Badger is somewhere in the Arctic Circle right now. And, trying to chase down Arctic wolves.
Try to stay away from bill collectors, or?
You know, we're supposed to have a vote on officers tonight, and I think he was trying to make sure he wasn't.
Doesn't he know that the one who's not here gets a lot?
You gotta watch out for it.
That's probably it.
Yeah. And I haven't heard from Kathleen, so, but she's not here obviously, so we have a couple of alternates and our most senior alternate and our junior alternate. I don't see Dick signed in either, so both of you appear to be voting members this evening. Woo! All right.
I'm getting nervous.
It's your responsibility to call the roll.
Okay. Oh, it is.
It is, yes, according to our bylaws, yes.
So we're supposed to say who's all here?
Yeah, well, so that, because we're gonna have a public hearing tonight, and it's all official.
Okay. Bill Terry? Huntley Allen?
Here.
Jim Ossip? John Allen?
Here.
Sir?
Here.
Chris?
Yep.
David? Here.
All right, that's it. And we will all be voting this evening. All right. Minutes from the last meeting, this is March 17th. Copies here if you haven't seen them. As you're taking a look, I'm hoping for a motion to approve.
I'll give the motion.
I have a motion to approve, I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you. All right. This is your opportunity. Anybody have anything for something that's not before the board this evening? I always check in with Hank, because, you know, all righty. Our first order of business, it's our first meeting following the town meeting. Actually, it's our second meeting, but it's the first one where we have reappointed people and everybody's in. And hopefully you've been sworn in.
Yes.
Good, I have as well, and I'm not sure about Kathleen, but she's not. We have to determine who our officers are going to be for this coming year.
I'll nominate the current officers to continue on with another term.
I'll second that.
I'll third it.
All right, any discussion?
No.
Okay. We have a motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And I did check with Scott, he did agree
pretty extreme to go to the Arctic Circle to get out of being nominated, though, I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm out of town.
If you know, when you grow up in Jackson, where do you go to
Yeah,
be
right.
somewhere away, right? All right. So our next order of business, we're moving along here very quickly.
Right on time.
7:15.
Yeah, I think we did really well. We have a public hearing. The board members are the ones we just talked about, so we don't need to do that again. And nobody's got a problem being a member of the public hearing this evening. Okay, great. Seth? You're on.
I'm on. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Seth Purnell. I'm a land surveyor with HEB Engineers. And I don't know if you want to spread some copies of the plan around here, or is everyone
I'll take one.
looked at the... We had sent Julie a PDF that has been on the website. This way? Yeah. Got 5 of them.
Yep, we're good. That's required.
Yep. So this is an application for a lot line adjustment of about 1/10 of an acre of land between a parcel owned by Dundee Management Corporation that's around 20 acres in size, and a smaller parcel of land that's a little less than an acre or so that's owned by the 998 Pinkham Realty Trust, who the owner of that is Scott Kudrick. And basically adding a small parcel of land to the back of Kudrick's parcel. And the reason that we're doing this is really precipitated by the Dundee Community Forest Project, which most of you maybe have heard of the existence of that. There's approximately 1,200 acres of land owned by Dundee Management Corporation in between Bartlett and Jackson that's ultimately going to get turned over to the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust. And so this 20-acre parcel is one part of a group of parcels that are here in Jackson that are going to be part of the community forest. And part of our due diligence and a requirement before the sale of the land is to deal with any encroachments. There have been several around the parcels between Bartlett and Jackson. Most of them were minor enough that we could make them go away easier, but there were a couple of instances where it just made sense to transfer title of the land. So in this particular area, it's just a small kind of nice area in the backyard that's grassed, and there was some obvious use over time of that area in between where the property line used to be and the brook, which is where most people would think the property line is anyway. Some of these parcels that were deeded off back in the 40s and 50s, some used the brook as the boundary, some had some boundaries that were just shy of the brook. So in this particular case, it just made sense to make that part of the land. So we're really just making one segment of boundary to be more brook.
Tree maybe?
Yes, there were a couple of trees down there. One of them was relevant to the boundary, so we were paying attention closely to them. But I believe there's a small fire pit that's in use on that little bit of land. And again, that area just kind of, it makes sense for the brook to be the boundary there anyway.
Discussion? Questions?
North is about up and left, there's the north arrow.
Okay.
That applies for both views.
Dave,
Kind of have an overall view that shows the whole
do we have a checklist?
parcels.
Is there any discussion, any questions, concerns? And we need to go through our checklist, we will do that. But before we do that, is there anything that anybody would like to talk about or questions that you might ask of Seth?
Just a couple of questions. So this is on the west side of the road, am I correct?
It's on the northeast side of Dundee Road, so
Oh, northeast
it's where
side, okay.
it kind of wraps around, you're just beyond Black Mountain, so Dundee.
Oh, so it's not that far up?
No,
No, it's not on the right-hand side.
You still don't
Just
want to ride your
before,
bike there, but yeah.
it's that little
Bill's Park.
cabin.
Remember, Macfield had that little cabin on the
Yeah,
right-hand
yeah.
side? That's part of that.
Okay.
Just past that, just past that.
Got it.
If you're coming from Black Mountain, you've turned around to the east and you're coming back to the southeast, and this is on the
Yeah, so
left.
it's on the right-hand side.
Okay.
It'd be on the left side if
Right.
you're leaving Jackson, you come around.
Do I have any comments, questions from the
I'm
public?
just in a butter here. I got the letter.
Just.
That's why I'm here.
You're important. Do you have any questions?
No, but I should have looked at that when it was on the table and I didn't.
Would you like to look at it?
Yeah.
Come on down.
Look at this. See, this is my house. So where is this?
It's,
Way up here. isn't it?
Yeah, so the detail
So I'm not
area.
really in a butter, am
You are technically in a butter
Okay.
because your land abuts one of the parcels involved in the transaction.
I? Okay. Which parcel is that?
That is this
This is
larger,
me.
this entire parcel that's owned by Dundee Management, which is
Right.
all the way down, and it basically wraps around all of your house lots.
So the log cabin's here?
Yes, that's the log cabin.
Okay, so what's the property line? It's going this way towards the river?
So you gotta look in this detail area where it blows up, and that's what this
little
log
log
cabin
cabin
on
on
the
the
left.
left.
It's just a
Big
little
parcel.
parcel of land here, so it's, the lot line did go through here, and it's being brought out to the border. Which represents this little shaded area, so that's the land that's being enhanced, so.
Do you have any surveys that I could take home?
These five are for the
Are
board.
spoken for?
There is
It's on the website.
It's on the
I
website.
have seen it on the website, but it's so small.
Well, you can
You
just
can
watch
just
it, you
get
can
it
pick up
large.
the deal thing.
It's hard,
Whatever
it's
that
hard
is.
to read. It's hard to read the print, though. But I
Can
didn't know
we
it's-
sacrifice a copy?
No,
It's a required.
Okay, this is part of Macfield's property, which you owned almost all of them, way back when, part of it anyways.
If this gets approved, we can certainly make you a copy. You can come pick one up at our office in North Dalton Village anytime. And this will be, this is all gonna get, or ultimately are going to be plans of the entire Dundee parcels, and this is all gonna get incorporated into as well.
What's the access to that Dundee
Yeah, this one's-
property? You know,
Doesn't have this.
There are
this
several
whole section here, what's the
different.
access to that?
There is access further southeast on Dundee Road, so there's some frontage here, that's all Dundee Management.
We have an extra copy that didn't have that.
Oh,
So,
yeah, the original
The original
submission.
Okay, thank you.
It's missing a couple of little details, but there's no changes.
Thanks.
Certainly.
Okay, you're good?
I'm fine. Thank you for getting this tonight.
All right, we'll go through the checklist then?
Yes, checklist has been reviewed, application was signed by the owner, letters listed provided, and did mail all the letters out, application fees have been paid. The 5 copies and the 1 Mylar was pending, we now have those, so that is now a yes on the checklist. Title box identified the title, the proposed line. The E99 address for the proposed lot is on.
It's in the title block under the record owner, 998 Pinkham.
Tax map, lot number on all lots. Yep. An ownership chart, including the printed names of all owners for each involved lot. Before adjustment and after adjustment, the amount of acreage actually being exchanged in acres and square feet.
Yep.
Butters names, tax map, and lot numbers matching separate abutter list. Yes. Name of zoning district where lots to be adjusted are located.
Yep.
Minimum zoning frontage requirement. Plot scale 1 inch equals 100 feet or better. North arrow, which we did find out. Location map clearly showing center site location and adjacent named roads. Name, license number, address, and seal and signature of surveyor. Surveyor certification statement. I certify that.
Yep, it's there.
Name, address, and seal of engineer on all engineering sheets. Boundary survey including bearings and distance for all lot lines, both current and proposed. Show entire parcels being adjusted with current lot numbering.
Yep.
All zoning ordinance setback lines, i.e. building setback in year-round streams. Soils and minimum lot size chart demonstrating each proposed lot meets zoning minimum lot size requirements based on section 6 of the zoning requirements.
Applicable.
Yep, that's correct. Butters names, tax map, lot numbers matching separate butters list. Existing buildings and other human-made objects remaining.
Apparently.
Deed restrictions, if any, copy of deed and statement indicating no knowledge of deed restrictions may be substituted.
There are no known deed restrictions on the property.
Location of existing and proposed water supplies within 200 feet of the involved lots.
Yep.
Okay. Location of existing and proposed sewers and septic systems within 200 feet of the involved lots.
Best we can tell.
Okay.
Yes, we did. We showed the septic on the parcel, which is the closest thing.
Yeah, but we can't know what's not.
Right.
Floodplain land, if applicable. Is this a floodplain land?
It's not, nothing, it's not part of any study of floodplain. So there is a note that says that, the last note, survey note.
That's the last one on the checklist. That's it.
That's it?
That's the last one on the checklist.
That's it. All right. So we need to first accept the application. I have a motion to accept.
Motion to accept. Okay, you do?
Second?
Second.
I have a motion to accept and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. We now have to, I guess, vote to approve the application.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I think we're done. There will be no other comments or concerns. This public hearing is closed. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for getting the I certified thing.
Oh, of course. Not a problem.
The way it reads actually allows for your other description,
Yes, it's,
even though you make arrive at it in a different way.
yeah, yep, I agree with that.
So it's like, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay. That was easy.
Doing well. Short-term rental application. Or do you want to do your, flip the discussion?
No,
Okay.
get that going.
Short-term rental application, only one tonight. One application, and that is for Kirk and Elizabeth Beatty. The address is 554 North Route 16. It's a 3-bedroom tax card. There's no septic or building permit on file. The advertisement says 3 bedrooms, which is what it has, and it says it sleeps 6. So they meet all of the requirements.
Where exactly is this? Does anybody know?
It's right on 16, about a mile north
Okay.
of town.
Trying to picture it, I can't.
There's a picture of the place here. On the tax card. Yeah, no,
I don't recognize that.
Can I see that?
Sure. There's a better picture from your ad.
here's from the ad.
If you want to compare the ad to the other art picture.
So which side of the road is it on? Is it on the river side?
Is it right on the road? Doesn't look familiar to me.
No, it doesn't to me
It's
either.
probably,
Set back from the road with the Ellis River just across the street, so it's on
It's on the right
it's on the right side going on.
There is a house after the sign.
He's gonna go.
That's that.
It
I
says
just found out
here,
about that.
8 guests.
pardon?
It says 8 guests, 3
And the
bedrooms,
ad,
6 bed. 6.
3 bedrooms. You
Yeah,
can have 8 guests.
yeah, that's correct. They can have up to 8 visitors.
But what's the difference between sleep number and guest number? Because it says guests.
Based on bedrooms.
Right.
it's bedroom.
2
You can
per
have 2
bedroom
plus
plus 2.
bedroom,
Yeah,
plus 2.
okay.
Because you can have 2 people in 1 bedroom.
Yeah, okay.
Even if they can't sleep them, they can have. I like the ones we get where they have 14 beds but sleep 6.
That's right.
That was the case in my house. Back in the 70s.
That's a single bedroom, or 2 bedrooms that turns into 4.
Alrighty. And the way the write-up is on that, I'm not sure I want to rent it, but
Careful.
I have a question. How do you know about septic approval for the bedrooms? Because your septic system is approved for X amount of bedrooms.
well, not all our properties have septic approvals. This one, for example, was
Didn't say.
produced
Doesn't have
back
one
in 1973, and so we don't have anything on file. I have
So
no
it
idea.
doesn't matter, you know.
Well, we do care. If it fails, if it fails, they're gonna have to deal with that. But
Yeah.
that's-
But that's not part of your,
But that's not part
Requirement.
of the,
No, if they have a
You don't have to
septic,
have
if they have a
septic
septic approval of 3 bedrooms, they can't advertise for 4 bedrooms. That's the
the septic approval just came into being after a certain.
Yeah, it was back, what, the late 70s when we started doing all
Well, this was 73.
Sometimes it's on file with the state, but
for the
Try to
older
find
ones, there's nothing. We don't really have any way of verifying that, and we don't have any legal authority to verify that.
Will you at some point just, because usually if you build a house and you put a septic system in, you get approval for
Right,
X
that's
amount of
modern
bedrooms, like
regulations.
Oh, for
new.
sure.
So-
Modern regulations
Yeah.
are that way, yeah.
So everybody else doesn't have to.
Right, but these are houses that were built, mine was built back in
So it could
1920s.
have a cesspool.
That's what I used to have.
Yeah,
That's what I used to have until I had to put one in back in the 80s. But
Well,
again, I'm
yeah.
on file because I had to have approval from the state back in the 80s. Prior to that, you didn't have to have that
so
approval.
sometime in the 80s was septic.
Well, that was my case. It might have been prior to that, but, you know, I don't know exact year or date or anything like that. But anybody who builds a new house has to have septic approval. They can't build more than us.
But for short-term rentals, that has nothing to do with,
Well,
It
to
It does,
But-
it does.
To answer your question, we've tried to make sure that what we're requiring of a short-term rental operator is nothing more than is required of anyone else in town. And so if someone chooses to live in a home that was built in 1920 and it has a septic system, cesspool, whatever it is, the town can't ask somebody to change it over unless it fails.
It works.
And so it's not a requirement of the short-term rental. The only requirements we have the short-term rental is that if they have legal bedrooms in their homes, and the tax card says they have 3 bedrooms, we ask that they do not advertise their home to have more occupancy than 2 people per bedroom plus 2.
so the tax card lets you know how many bedrooms there are.
That's correct.
And then, like this one had 3 bedrooms,
three
and it's 2 people per bedroom,
Right,
plus 2 extra
right.
somewhere else.
And that would be the maximum that they could advertise. Oftentimes we see when we're getting these applications says sleeps 10 and there are only 3 bedrooms, and it's like, no, that's not okay. And so they need to change the ad before the select board will actually approve.
Could they change the tax card?
No.
No. I mean, they could if it's incorrect.
Uh-huh.
Or they built an addition or replaced their septic system.
You know, if they say, oh gee, you're not including the 2-bedroom addition that we had back in 1947, presumably it would be on the tax card because the assessments are done every 5 years, so it should be updated.
Should be up to date.
I need a motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Done. Thank you. All right. New business. I asked David to put this on the agenda for this evening, and not necessarily that we'll talk about everything, but I'd like everybody to think about what initiatives we ought to have for this year, and think through whether or not there's anything that's a pressing need. I know that if we have SB 249 approved in some form or fashion during the year, we'll have some work to do on that. And I'm not sure if anything has come up other than that we need to address on short-term rentals. But I think I'd like to wait to see if that's going to happen this term before we put that on the agenda as something we need to look at. Because if we're going to look at it, I'd like to look at everything all at once.
I think it's next Thursday that we vote on it. I can't figure it out. I think it's touch and go either way. I'm voting against it.
In its current form, it seems
It didn't,
make its way right.
no, it didn't. Not what I expected.
Yeah.
Now, if that passes, does that mean that the towns won't have any control whatsoever and we have to go by the state? No?
No.
So then, can we?
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so then
It
can,
means we have some limit on what we can do. We can't say no. You can't have them. but you're allowed to do some regulation, and the question is how much regulation is allowed.
What it did is it takes it beyond when we originally put it in Jackson, that we thought we could do is like inspect the house. Well, now you can. If this goes through, you can at least inspect the house and make sure they got, if they're talking about a bedroom in the basement, to make sure there's a second way to get out.
Or an egress, yeah.
Yeah,
So all those things, yeah.
Because like the plumbing and electrical code, a town can have some more stringent regulations than the state. And my thoughts are, can we consider doing what Madison did and have a maximum 90-day rentals for short-term rentals, even if it's in residential zones, not be concerned with business.
That we don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. And it's hard to say even if our 30 rental thing would be overridden.
Right.
Although, based on what I've read, anything we have in place would likely stay in place. But I'm not sure if that is there or if that's got modified. Or
I don't think it would modify what we have, other than allowing us to, send somebody to inspect the house and make sure that it's up to code, it's got fire, alarms and all that stuff.
It might,
Is there such a thing requiring notification of the percentage of homes in a town that are short-term rental?
No, there's nothing there.
It seems to me that would be an important issue
It-
to discuss, because what happens if you have a town like Jackson and 85% of the houses are short-term rentals?
Well, that's
And what does that do to the town?
that's the problem.
Yeah.
that's an issue, but it's certainly not one that's being addressed by the.
That's why I'm voting against it.
Yeah, yeah.
And sadly, I was talking to a sheriff in Captiva Island, we were down in Sanibel, and STIs are basically a cancer that's spreading throughout the whole United States, and they're having a big issue there too.
We're not the only ones.
No, but it seems like we have this initiative, which was started a long time ago, about making sure that there are enough properties for people who can't afford the current properties here. Workforce housing,
That has nothing to do with short-term
well,
rentals.
well, yes, it does, because
we could argue that, but,
Yeah. But it seems like,
it's affordable housing for a $900,000 home doesn't quite.
No. But if houses that are being kept that would otherwise have been sold,
Yes, no, I
in an
appreciate
affordable
that.
way,
Yeah, I appreciate
it
that.
seems like that there's two initiatives going in opposite directions.
Right.
There's no question about the fact short-term rentals remove housing from the community
Yeah,
that might otherwise be
Yeah,
available.
yeah, that was my
And
point.
that it does do that.
yeah.
It escalates the price too.
And it offers the opportunity to escalate price, all those
Yeah.
things. And
If you eliminated it entirely, it wouldn't solve the problem.
No, I understand. I understand.
And you can't.
And the only thing SB 249 will do is possibly streamline the application process, possibly,
Yeah.
and offer the opportunity for us to, which, when we went through this the first time, we were told, no, we can't do any inspections, we can't do this, we can't do that, and actually it has some enabling clauses to allow us to have more regulation than what we currently have. But I think most of the provisions we have in our current zoning ordinance don't really conflict with SB 249.
Yeah.
So we'll have to take a look at it and see what does or doesn't, and who knows what the final version of that darn thing will look like.
Just so that the ability to change. before?
I doubt it very much. It's gone through the ringer.
Well, I think, it's difficult for people in a town to be able to weigh in on the subject if they don't know what they're weighing in on. So, I mean, you can talk about how you prefer short-term rentals or you don't, but if you don't know the percentages, if you don't know where things are going, then it's difficult to make a legitimate decision if you're a homeowner.
Yeah, and
I mean, I'm only saying this because in the paper, they list the number of short-term rentals in Conway. So people at least have an idea that there's between 500 and 600, short-term rentals in that area. We here have no idea.
we do have an
We
idea.
do.
Well, but the town doesn't. You might.
No,
But
the
it's
town
not-
has an idea of how many we have.
But I would bet you that the public does not know.
Well, it's public knowledge though, and it's, if somebody's interested in finding out, they have to investigate it.
Mhm.
Well, and that's, the only thing the town knows is those that have registered. I can name off 3 right now that aren't registered. So, and how many more are there?
For instance, the lot line adjustment we just did, Goodrich, it's the one who was the defendant on the short-term rentals in Conway for that court case. And the question is this cabin on this lot a short-term rental? And
Oh,
if it is, does he have a permit?
Don't know specifically, but I'm sure it is though.
My point.
Don't know. What I do know though is that Scott has applied for, I think, 6 different properties in town, and I think he has probably met his requirements for doing so, unlike many others. And it's up to the Board of Selectmen to marshal the zoning ordinance, not us.
When we see something like that though, how can we not say that that's a business?
Okay, we can have this discussion, but it's not our
it's
not our responsibility to determine whether or not something is a business or not a business.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, you're allowed to rent your house. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you want to rent for a day, a week, a month, a year, you can do that. And there's no way you can regulate. We can regulate it with our present system, but we can't prohibit it.
This isn't
This
renting
is
your
a
house,
new
though.
thing.
This is renting properties you're buying specifically to rent.
Right, but it doesn't mean you can't
But
do
it
it.
also-
Doesn't mean you can't do it.
Also affects those who have second homes up here that want to rent it when they're not using it.
Right.
So you really have 2 classes. One you say is okay, and the other one is you want to limit.
Right.
Well, that's been going on for a long time.
It has.
But the thing that bothers me, being a homeowner here, is that I really don't want to see businesses being developed with multiple houses purchased just for the purpose of rent. What does that do to the character of the town?
Well, it does affect local hotels too. I've
Yeah.
talked with different hotel owners and it does affect them.
Sure.
And they have to have inspections, they have to, they have so many more regulations than short-term rentals and basically on competition.
Mhm.
But again, hotels are housing many more people than one single family. If a hotel burns down, you're talking hundreds of people that could get affected as opposed to one family. Not that I want anybody hurt, but again, in terms of impact, following on that, you get a hotel, they're gonna have a certain amount of regulations that are gonna be much heavily regulated than a simple house. That's the part. You can't go into the house and do an inspection, and that's the thing. We'd like to be able to do that, but we can't.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part of this is that it truly is a determination by a state body that's going to decide whether or not an individual right is maintained or whether or not a town can create a regulation to avoid. For example, the example that would be used by somebody who's for short-term rentals says that the common law that has been in place for over 1,000 years says you have the right to rent the property. You can argue, well, it's only a day and that's a short-term rental, it's a business. Well, it's a business to rent your property. As soon as you receive $1 from someone to rent your property, is that a business? And that means that, 50 to 60% of the homes here that people have allowed their neighbor in Massachusetts to use for a day or a weekend. That's business. You've created a business. So you may decide that's a business, and common law says that's not a business. So,
but I think this is an issue where you know when there's abuse when you see it.
I agree, and you would love to see that the state would identify the situations in SB 249 where the abuses could be identified and therefore prevented.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is, no, that's not what we're going to do, and for whatever basis.
But when you see the lobbyists, who are really pushing it one way or the other, it really creates.
There's a certain element in the state that wants absolutely no rules at all.
Yep.
They don't want public education, and I would hope that when you vote in November, you would consider that.
Yes, we're not in a public hearing, but I recognize you. Go ahead, please.
If I'm out of order, that's okay.
Go ahead, please.
Did I hear you say that Scott Kudrick owns 6 properties in Jackson?
I believe that's correct.
And he has permits, he's applied for permits?
He has applied for permits for all the properties he owns, yes.
Okay. I didn't.
And how many properties in North Carolina?
I have no idea. And I may, I say 6, but Scott made a special effort to ensure that all his properties are properly registered in town. And he's one of the responsible people in town who did that initially. And in fact, sat in when we were doing our process.
I remember him.
For creating these things.
The problem is with me is that this can all be legal and they can all have done it exactly right, but it is not according to. If you talk to the people who buy in Jackson to live here, this isn't what people wanted, nor what they expected.
Yeah. But back up 100 years, and the only people who lived here were people who were visitors, right? And people who were supporting big hotels. Where we are right now is different from where we were 50 years.
I mean, if this goes on farther, take
we're
that
different.
little building down the street that's called a schoolhouse and erase it.
That may be what is necessary 20 years from now, because there will be no young families.
Yeah.
That school's always been marginal. Always has.
Well, you can make every excuse in the world imaginable, but I guarantee you, if you sit down with people in your house or other places and talk to them about what they see as the future of this town and what they want out of it, it is not short-term rental.
Yeah. What do you do about it?
That attitude makes nothing happen.
No, but what that means is that this particular issue is not going to solve the other issue.
No, I agree.
And so the question is that you need to have a separate effort to fit that requirement.
We need a lawyer.
Yeah. Those of us who feel this way need as big of a firm to be on our side as the
there's no question that money is a big part of the whole deal, and that people are mining the value of the town to benefit themselves. But that's been true since our foundation of this town. That's the reason this town exists.
Yeah, I agree.
We've also priced ourselves out of existence here in town. I mean, we've priced ourselves out of existence. You can't find a home in this town that's reasonably priced anymore for a young person to move in who might be a teacher who wants to set up here. It just isn't going to happen in Jackson.
And if you want to buy a lot and build, the lot costs more
over $100,000.
Affordable housing requirement.
I agree.
So
But this contributes to the problem, though.
it does, but it's not the only thing. And
I
second,
agree.
you know, people owning second homes, 55% of our homes are second homeowners.
Yeah,
Most of them don't rent short-term rental.
right.
But they also take homes out of the market. We should forbid people from owning second homes in town because it's taking homes away from. I mean, you can come up with any reason you want
I agree.
to prohibit people from owning property and having the right to their property. So but anyway. Besides short-term rental, are there any other opportunities
Is there anything on the groundwater that we put in place that should be,
that we didn't do or we should have done or we?
enhance or make sure it happens, or?
We're going on what was recommended by that portion of the state government. I mean, this is their model ordinance, trying to get it. And it really is covering industry and which in many cases, a lot of the restrictions that are in that ordinance would only apply to somebody coming in who is setting up some sort of industry.
Okay.
So,
Because I'm working with Julie to get it put into our zoning ordinance book.
we need to put it in, yes.
Hmm?
We need to put it in the
Yeah.
book.
Right.
And when I typed it out, I didn't give it a section number, I called it Q.
Right.
So we need to decide where it fits in. And so wherever you put it in, it means that all the sections that are coming after are going to have to be renumbered.
Put it last.
That's what Julie asked.
Put it last.
Well, unfortunately, that doesn't work because it's the sections that are last are, well, you've got it right there. Having,
So,
Yeah, you have to have things relative to the effective date, conflicts, severability, things like that.
That's
There's
just
a-
stuff that needs to go at the end.
There's always something that has to be at the end that we have to remember. The question that had come up when we did the groundwater effort was whether or not we should be looking at water use as opposed to, I mean, the groundwater ordinance was really about the aquifer, but then the question was whether or not we really wanted to take a look at water use in town. And
Unknown caller.
I'm not sure if that's something we want to look at or whether or not that's going to be as difficult as short-term rentals to look at. Something to consider. One of the thoughts I had was that should we be talking about solar power installations? You know, we've had neighbors in Lovell, Maine, who had a big issue with. Again, I don't know that our town is particularly set for someone to purchase a large tract of land to put a solar farm in.
Maybe a landlocked land though.
That's a possibility. And, you know, transmission lines and whatever, but it may not be feasible, but is that something we should, as we did with radio towers, put something in place to avoid an issue that might come at some
That's
future
forward
time?
thinking for sure.
It
Yeah,
would
the telecommunications towers, that came through, that was the same thing as the short-term rentals, is that the state said you can't say they can't be there, but you can regulate them. And so the planning board had opportunity to put together the transmission line, what section it is, and we did get it in and approved before the applications came to use it. And it was definitely good to have it because it regulated so you didn't have some huge tower, like the towers that are on top of Black Mountain. You gotta look for them because transmission, it's our section 14, and they're limited to relative to the tree cover. It's there. And so that was good to get that in. Now the question is on, if you say for solar farms, John mentioned landlocked. Most of that land, the landlocked land I'm thinking of is up on Eagle Mountain Ridge up there. And if you're gonna put solar farm there, you're gonna have to have access to it. And so you'd have to somehow, if you're going to develop it, you would then have to buy some land from people who would then give you access down to a road so you could build a road.
And easement.
Wouldn't the same thing apply to wind power as well? I mean, if you're gonna tackle solar farm, you should tackle wind farm as well.
Up on the ridges is where they put the.
So is that something we should consider?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that might be worthwhile.
Sure.
And even East Pasture, there's quite a bit of land up there.
I'm sorry?
East Pasture.
Don't want a bunch of wind tunnels in our town.
So maybe we can consider that.
We'll take a little research, yeah.
Anything else?
A little less controversial.
I think that would be an interesting one to put on the plate for this year. And again, barring SB 249 coming through and causing trouble for us.
I'll do my best.
No,
We're not doing anything that causes problems.
it would be good at least to do something more on the positive side.
You know, you can watch all the debate on YouTube, even the committee debates on it, as well as the whole thing. Go in and put.
Oh boy.
Is that
Yeah,
exciting
wait.
as C-SPAN?
Pardon? Oh, no, it's much more exciting to see.
Oh,
All right, any other?
We might just suggest looking over the master plan and seeing if there's things that we say that we should be doing that we aren't necessarily.
So
specifically
your
doing.
assignment is to take a look at the master plan, and if there's anything else that we should be looking at. I didn't want to say these are the things we're going to do. The whole idea was just tonight to talk about what potential initiatives we might have so we can make some decisions around it, and open the discussion and then work.
Maybe some recommendations for the new committee on the facilities, see what they, if you have anything you're kicking around, and pass on to them.
Because Sarah and I are, you're on that committee.
I am, but I can't make the first meeting because I have another meeting that's already scheduled at that time, and that's what I told her when.
Nice to be wanted, huh?
Well, I respect the fact that you're bringing this stuff up because proactive work is so much more rewarding.
It's more fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And down the road, someone will appreciate it maybe.
Yeah.
Another hot button issue would be zoning, our commercial versus rural residential. That was one thing that was.
Yeah, well, that's come up, and whether or not we should really just make a decision around certain areas where.
Or have more than 2 districts,
That was tough.
is what was recommended by North Country Council when they did one of the studies. And we just sort of said, yes, that's nice, and didn't carry anything forward. As to whether that's something we should do, it's going to stir up a hornet's nest, but
That'd be all right, as long as it's something that's worthwhile doing and comes up with a proper,
Hornets' nests are good to stir.
sometimes,
Because then it lets you know what people are thinking.
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, right. Except
Otherwise,
if
Usually
it's real hornets, yeah.
People don't want change.
Yeah,
No, but if it's something that helps,
yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes, for example, we had the short-term rental where the individual said, my house is 3 feet into the zone. My property's 3 feet into the zone, don't I get to be counted as commercial? And the answer is no. But it should be more clear than what we have currently, possibly. Anyway, think about it.
Do you, for the minutes tonight, do we want to talk about anything that we want to put on the agenda for next month? So we can start thinking about it, because we're going to wait on the state. So the short-term rental, groundwater, water usage, solar, wind power, master plan review, zoning, any of those we want to tackle. I'm just thinking for the agenda for next month. We're thinking for that. So we can think about it, or
I think just leave it open as a discussion item for next time, and we can identify that these are the items that were brought up as possibles for this time.
It might be interesting to get what Lovell did and see what they did regarding the solar farm.
Yeah, they've done some very nice work, so we
absolutely.
we might be able
I'll cheat
to,
on that.
cribbing on an exam is one thing, but on this stuff, it's great. Any further discussion, any other new business items? I think somebody's got to have a hat somewhere. Tip.
It hasn't been on all day.
I think it's the selectmen's obligation to.
Oh, okay.
It's always
do I
been
have
that. It's always
do
been
I hear
that
a
way.
motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're done. Thank you much.
Thank you.
About being on the CDP,
Hey, Hank, is that off?